When Mom told me we had renovations scheduled at the apartment and that I'd need to crash somewhere for a week or two, I didn't expect to end up back at Aunt Rachel's. Technically, she's not my aunt, just Mom's best friend from college, but I've called her that since I could talk. She was always part of my childhood, the woman who gave me juice boxes and Band-Aids and made the best French toast on Sundays. It had been years since I'd stayed at her place. Now I was 23, halfway through grad school, and suddenly back in her guest room with a duffel bag and a laptop full of half-finished assignments. She greeted me at the door like no time had passed. Loose cardigan, yoga pants, hair pulled up in that messy knot she always wore. She looked the same and completely different. Still Rachel, but not quite the same woman I remembered from my childhood. "You've gotten tall," she said, eyeing me up and down. I smiled. "And you haven't aged a day." She laughed at that. Liar. Her house hadn't changed much. The scent of sandalwood and citrus still lingered in the hallway. The same patterned rugs covered the hardwood floors, and there was still that one squeaky step just before the kitchen. "You know where everything is," she said, waving a hand. "Make yourself at home." I unpacked in the guest room, the same one I used to sleep in during weekends or when Mom and I had nowhere else to go. The walls were painted a calm gray now, the bed had new sheets, but the window still looked out over her little backyard garden. I sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled slowly, not quite sure what I was feeling. That night, she made pasta and opened a bottle of wine. We ate at the kitchen island, the light low and golden, the vibe easy. She asked about school, my ex, my plans for summer. I asked her about the gallery she managed, her latest hiking trip, how she managed to keep the house looking like it belonged in a magazine. Everything felt casual, familiar, until it didn't. She leaned forward once, laughing at something I'd said, and her hand touched mine on the counter. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't anything. But I noticed. Later, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying the way her laugh lingered in the air, the way she tilted her head when she listened, the way she walked barefoot through the kitchen, wine glass in hand, humming softly. It was nothing, just Rachel being Rachel. Except, it didn't feel like nothing anymore. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found her stretching near the window, arms above her head, tank top riding just slightly. Her hair was damp from the shower, and there was a freckle on her shoulder I'd never noticed before. "Coffee?" she asked, smiling like it was just another Tuesday. I nodded, trying not to let my gaze linger. "Please." We settled into a rhythm, me helping her with small house tasks she never got around to, her making meals and leaving out folded laundry like it was second nature. She asked me to help carry a box from the garage, and when I did, her hand brushed my lower back to guide me through the door. That touch stayed with me all day. In the evenings, we'd watch a movie or just sit in the living room reading. Sometimes she'd curl up on the opposite side of the couch, legs tucked beneath her, a blanket around her shoulders. Once, I felt her foot nudge mine under the coffee table. She didn't move it. Neither did I. I wasn't sure when things started to feel different. It was a gradual shift, like the temperature rising so slowly you didn't notice until you were already sweating. She'd always been beautiful, but now I saw her with different eyes, and I couldn't tell if she noticed, or if she was pretending not to. One night, as I walked past her bedroom to get a glass of water, I heard her humming again, low, barely audible. The door was cracked open. I didn't look in. I kept walking, but something about it made my chest tighten. I told myself I was overthinking it, that being in close quarters again was messing with my head. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. There was something in the way she looked at me sometimes, like she was remembering something, or maybe noticing something new. And every time I caught her gaze, I felt the air shift, as if she was waiting for something, or daring me to. The next few days blurred into something slow and warm. We settled into an odd rhythm. Late breakfasts, shared space, short conversations that felt too light for how heavy the air between us had grown. I caught myself watching her more often than I wanted to admit. And every now and then, I caught her watching me too. It was small things. The way her gaze lingered when I reached for something on a high shelf. How she stood in the kitchen doorway longer than needed while I dried dishes. How she once said, "You've grown into yourself," then sipped her tea like she hadn't just unsettled the hell out of me. I didn't know what it meant. Or maybe I didn't want to admit that I did. Then came Thursday. The day started like any other. Quiet morning, coffee, some light conversation about the neighbor's new dog. She had errands to run, so I stayed behind to catch up on emails. Around noon, I went for a short run and came back sweaty, out of breath, peeling off my shirt as I walked upstairs. The house was quiet. Her bedroom door was closed. Shower running. I grabbed a clean shirt, dropped onto the bed, and reached for my phone. I'd barely started replying to a message when I heard it. Her footsteps, soft, bare, approaching. The door opened without a knock. I looked up and froze. She stood there, Rachel, wearing nothing but a white towel wrapped around her body. Damp strands of hair clung to her neck, and small beads of water traced down along her collarbone. The towel dipped slightly at the top, folded tightly above her chest, and fell to mid-thigh. Her skin was still flushed from the heat of the shower. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she stepped inside, shut the door quietly behind her, and said the words that would burn themselves into my memory. "We don't have much time." Her voice was low, calm, like she was making an observation, not starting a fire. My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" She looked at me not like a friend of my mom's, not like someone older, wiser, off-limits. She looked at me like a woman who had already made up her mind. "Your mom called. She's flying back a day early. She'll be here tomorrow night." I blinked. That wasn't the answer I expected. I swallowed, trying to find words, but my brain was racing. She took a slow step closer. "I thought I had more time to ignore this," she said. "Rachel," I breathed. She tilted her head slightly. "You felt it too, didn't you?" Couldn't lie. "Not now." "Yes." Her eyes softened. "I wasn't sure if it was just in my head." "It's not." A pause. The distance between us felt electric. I hadn't moved. She hadn't touched me. And yet my entire body was buzzing, like something inevitable was about to unfold. But she didn't reach for me. She just sat on the edge of the bed, keeping her towel in place with one hand, and looked down at her bare feet on the carpet. "I know this is complicated," she said. "I know how it sounds, but I also know how it feels, and I don't want to keep pretending like it's not there." I nodded, slowly, heart hammering in my chest. She looked at me again. "You've grown up. You're not that quiet kid anymore. You walk around this house like a man, and I see you." I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. Rachel gave a faint, unsure smile. "And I think part of me wanted you to see me too." That undid something in me. I reached out. Not for her waist, not for her hand, but just gently touched her knee. Just enough to say, "I'm here. I'm listening." She looked down at my hand, didn't move away. Then her hand slowly landed on mine. And we sat like that, her in a towel, me half-dressed, both of us knowing the air had changed. Nothing rushed. No dramatic leap. Just presence. Just awareness. After a moment, she exhaled and stood up. "I should finish getting dressed," she said, voice softer now. "But I had to say something." I nodded. "I'm glad you did." She smiled. A real one this time. "Good. Because I think we both know the clock's ticking." She turned, walked to the door, and opened it, then paused in the frame. Her back still to me, she added, "I'm making tea. If you come downstairs, we'll talk more." And then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was left sitting on the edge of the bed, pulse racing, reality shifting, and one sentence echoing in my head. "We don't have much time." I didn't go downstairs right away. I sat on the bed, my hand still warm where hers had rested. My mind was spinning, looping the last 10 minutes over and over again. The towel, her voice, that look. This was real, not a dream, not something I made up. Rachel had stepped into my room, closed the door, and said what I'd been too afraid to even think out loud. But now what? What did it mean? I eventually moved, washed my face, put on a clean shirt, stared at myself in the mirror longer than I should have, trying to look calm, composed. I wasn't. When I came down, the kitchen was lit only by the small overhead light above the stove. A teapot sat steaming gently, and 2 mugs waited on the counter. Chamomile. She remembered. She stood at the window, wearing a soft gray sweater and loose pajama pants. Her hair was still damp, pulled into a lazy twist. When she turned, she smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile she gave to friends or neighbors. It was something quieter, sadder, real. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not really." She handed me a mug without another word, and we both moved to the living room. The same couch, the same quiet hum of a jazz playlist she always had running in the background. We sat on opposite ends, feet on the rug, mugs in hand, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was waiting. I spoke first. "What you said earlier." Rachel looked up. "I meant it." That answer came fast. "Sure." No hesitation. She sipped her tea, then added, "I've been trying to ignore it for days, telling myself it's just nostalgia, that it's me projecting things I shouldn't. And now," she looked at me directly, "now I'm done lying to myself." I felt my breath catch. She continued, "I told myself I was just being kind, that I was just happy to have company in the house again. But it wasn't that. Not entirely." The weight of her words hung in the room like mist. "I noticed you watching me," she said. "Not in a bad way. Just, I saw it. And instead of stopping it, I let it happen. I didn't mean to." I began, but she cut me off gently. "I didn't say it was wrong." She set her mug down on the table. "You've changed. You walk around here like you belong. Like you're not afraid of taking up space anymore. You talk differently. You listen more deeply than most people I know." I didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever described me that way. Not like that. She leaned forward slightly. "And the truth is, part of me waited for you to notice me." I swallowed. "I did." A pause. She smiled again, softer now. "I know." The couch felt smaller suddenly. Not because we moved, but because something had closed the space between us without a single physical touch. I finally set down my mug and asked, "So what now?" She tilted her head. "I don't know. I want to be careful," I said. "Not because I'm afraid, but because I know what this could mean." "I know too," she said. "And believe me, I've gone over it in my head more than once." Another pause. Then she looked at me with something that resembled fear, but not of me, of herself, of this. "I'm afraid to hope," she said, barely audible. "Then don't hope," I said quietly. "Just feel." She looked at me for a long time. Her eyes scanned my face like she was trying to memorize it, like she was deciding whether to take one more step forward or disappear altogether. Then slowly she shifted. She didn't touch me. She didn't move to my side of the couch. but she tucked her legs under her, leaned just enough that her shoulder was angled toward me, and asked in the softest voice, "Do you regret me walking into your room today?" I shook my head. Not for a second. That was the truth. All of it. Rachel smiled faintly, exhaling like she'd been holding that breath for days. Then she said, "I'm not asking for forever. I'm not asking you to explain this to anyone. But tonight, I just don't want to feel like I'm the only one. You're not." And I didn't need to say anything more. We sat there, close but not touching, tea going cold on the table, while everything inside us shifted. Eventually, I reached for the blanket draped over the back of the couch and opened it slightly. She hesitated, just a moment, then moved closer, carefully, deliberately, and slid beneath it with me. Her arm didn't wrap around me. My hand didn't wander. We just sat, shoulder to shoulder, sharing silence and warmth. And when she finally rested her head lightly against mine, I closed my eyes and let the moment be exactly what it was. Not a secret, not a mistake, just the beginning of something neither of us had words for yet. I woke to the smell of toast. Not the kind of artificial, burnt scent from a rushed breakfast, but real toast. Buttered, crisp, slightly sweet. The kind that wraps around a house and seeps under your bedroom door like an invitation. Sunlight filtered through the window, painting slow-moving lines across the guest room floor. I blinked against it, stretching under the blanket. Took a second to remember where I was, what had happened. Then it all came back. Rachel, the couch, the quiet, her shoulder brushing mine. The moment that didn't need a kiss to feel like a turning point. I threw on a t-shirt and padded down the stairs barefoot, the wood cool beneath my feet. She was already in the kitchen. Her back was to me, hair loosely pulled up, a soft cream-colored sweater slipping slightly off one shoulder. She was barefoot too, moving around the stove with practiced ease. She hummed to herself the same tune from the other night. Something about the scene made my chest tighten. She turned when she heard me. "Morning." Her voice was gentle, neutral, but not cold. "Morning," I replied, rubbing the back of my neck. She slid a mug across the counter. "Coffee, just how you like it." "Thanks." We stood in the kitchen, quiet but not awkward, just tentative. I took a sip. Strong. Perfect. "I wasn't sure if you'd come down," she said after a moment, not looking at me. I wasn't sure what to say. She nodded, her eyes focused on the pan. "I get that." A few seconds passed. The butter sizzled. Then she said, without turning, "I don't regret last night." I let that sink in before answering. "Me neither." That made her glance over her shoulder at me. Her expression was unreadable, part caution, part relief. She plated 2 slices of toast and brought them to the table. We sat across from each other like we had dozens of times before, except everything had changed. "I thought I'd feel panicked this morning," she admitted, "or guilty, but I don't." I watched her. "What do you feel?" She took a bite, chewed slowly, swallowed. "Exposed," she said finally, "but grounded." That surprised me. Grounded. She met my eyes. Because for once, I didn't run from something I felt. I nodded, my heart thudding in my chest. "I've spent so long being the careful one," she said. "The composed one, always doing what's expected. But last night," she trailed off, looking down at her toast, "that was for me." I reached out, not across the table, but just enough to let my fingers rest on the edge of her plate. A gesture, nothing more. She looked at my hand, then at me. "I don't know what this is," I said, "or what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't feel like a mistake." Her eyes softened. "No," she agreed, "it doesn't." We sat in silence for a while. letting the quiet wrap around us again. Then she smiled, faint but real. I have errands to run this afternoon. Want to come with me? It was such a normal question, so mundane, and yet it held everything beneath it. I do, I said. She gathered the dishes and moved to the sink. I stood and joined her, washing without needing to be asked. We moved around each other easily, like always, but every brush of the hand, every glance, held something new, something open, something honest. After the dishes were done, she reached for her keys on the hook and paused. Turning to me, she asked, "You sure you're okay?" I nodded. "I'm better than okay." She studied me a second longer, like she was waiting for hesitation. There wasn't any. We stepped out into the day together. Not hand in hand, not defining anything yet, but with something unspoken between us now fully alive. Something slow, something real, something that might not need to be named just yet. And as the front door closed behind us, I realized it wasn't about time anymore. It was about what we chose to do with it.